You are listening to Thinner and Menopause with Dr. Deb Butler. This is episode number 258. Welcome to Thinner and Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. If you're a woman and you're smart and you're successful and you've been struggling with weight your whole life, and now menopause is making it harder than ever, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to go on a diet again, then this podcast is for you. Stay tuned. Hi, all my dear friends. How are you today? Well, it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. You know, I was in Florida a couple weeks ago, and it's warmer here. And I am loving it. I'm going to my favorite coffee houses where I love to sit and think and have my special Gibraltar. I don't even know if you guys know what that is, but oh my gosh, I just love it. It's really in between a cappuccino and a traditional macchiato. And sometimes I get it totally caffeinated. Sometimes I get it decaffeinated. Sometimes I get it partially caffeinated. It just depends on where I'm at that day and how much caffeine I would like to have. So as I'm talking about caffeine, I want to talk to you about how excited I am about what I want to share with you today, which is one of my most beloved clients' experiences. And I know you hear this from me all the time, my beloved clients, and I tell you all the time how much I love them, and I do. I love them. How could we not work together so closely for 12 weeks minimum and not have this deep experience? Because coaching is a deep experience and it's also a transformational experience, which is why on my website, I call my testimonial page my transformation page, because it's not really about testimonials. It's about people telling you how they have transformed from the coaching that I give them. And I don't say that lightly, and I don't say it as a big ego. I just say it that this is what I'm really good at. And I hope that all of you are doing what you love and what you're really good at. And listen, I was pretty good at chiropractic. I don't think I was as good a chiropractor as I am a coach. And I did chiropractic for 30 years. And it really wasn't until my 50s that I started getting this really uncomfortable feeling that, it's just not what I wanted to be doing anymore. And that I felt passionate about wanting to talk to people and get in their heads. And it's something that it's kind of been in me my whole life, of getting into people's heads and speaking about what's real. So I am really good at this because I am really passionate about it and I've learned about it. And I don't think anything lights me up more than being able to coach you or someone like you. So what I want to do today is I want to introduce to you one of my clients that I worked with. And her experience is, everybody has a little bit of a different experience. So I'd love for you to hear different people and different ways that they experience the coaching program. Some people lose a lot of weight. Some people don't lose a lot of weight, but all of them have a transformational experience that will lead to weight loss. There's no way that it can't. And with Peg, which is who I'm introducing you today, she is no different, except that she's pretty funny. So when you listen to this interview, you will be entertained by her also, because it's just kind of her personality. But she's also very vulnerable, and she will tell you the truth about her experience and her transformation. So I want you to sit back, take a walk. I know a lot of you take walks when you listen to this. Or if you're just in the car, pay attention to where you're driving, but listen to Peg as she talks about the experience of working with me. And I'll come back at the end of the program and say a few words. Hi, Peg. Welcome to my podcast. It's so good to have you here.
It's so good to see you and be here, Dr. Deb. I'm really happy to be able to share today.
Yes. And so I think when we're talking about sharing, you like before you started working with me, had you been listening to my podcast before you started working with me? Some people do and some people don't.
Oh, no, I did. I was listening and I was amazed from the beginning. My 100-pound self sent me to you. She
Uh,
recommended it. She said, "Oh, this is another good one." And when I heard the name Thinner Peace Through Menopause, I said, "Okay, that's me. That's what I was looking for." So I left that, and then I found you. And so I was for about, I guess, a full year. I listened, and it,
wow.
all your gifts that you've given us, Dr. Deb, like all that the free things. And when I looked at it, I said, "Oh." I feel bad for all the people who are going to have to pay Dr. Deb because I'm not going to, I'm not going to need to do this because this is all so fabulous. And so I guess my story really is that I needed a coach. I needed a wonderful coach to help me see. So as I looked at your things and the twos made so much sense because it was so opposite to the starving I had been doing. And
Yeah.
so when I heard about it, I said, "Oh my God, listening to your body. Wow. That was,
What a concept.
Well, it was such a concept, but I'm a nurse, and so
Yeah.
I believed in, I believe in the body, and I thought, wow, this is real. So the minute I started listening, I was hooked, and I felt really engaged, and I binged like a lot of us all do, and binged, and I said, okay, I'm just going to do it, and then I started doing it, and I kept saying, well, how come it's not working? What's going on here?
Uh-huh.
And being a nurse, and I work in long-term care, I was in the middle of COVID, and after we had that first wave, I felt depleted would be an understatement. And I knew I was
Mhm.
going to do something for myself. I was going to either do counseling and I just said to myself, well, what if I get these thoughts that are in my head, out of my head, and maybe lose a little bit of weight. And if coaching doesn't work, I'll go to counseling. And so that's kind of how I ended up with you. As I tried to do your stuff. It was great, but for some reason, which I found out later, but for reasons, my thoughts in particular, I couldn't figure it out. And I really needed somebody to, help me through.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So, like if I were asking you, so where were you before you started working with me? What was the deal? Like, was it hard for you to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full? Had tried diets before? Has this been something that's been going on for a while? And, how are you feeling emotionally by the time you decided that you really needed help?
I felt broken by the time I ended up with you. I was
Mhm.
what we found out later, and probably on the first time when we spoke officially for the first time, was that although I thought I was feeling my emotions, I just wasn't,
Mhm.
and that was startling for me. So why I wasn't successful. And yes, I'm the Weight Watcher Lifetime, and there's so
Right.
many of us that are listening. I connected to so many of your people
Yeah.
because it's, similar. So I wasn't a yo-yo dieter. I had lost the weight and then kind of held on to like 15 pounds. And I fooled myself. Again, another reason why I needed a coach was because I didn't know what I was even saying to myself. So,
Mhm.
oh, I didn't overeat. Oh, that really didn't count. And that wasn't, so I had all these makeup stuff. But I was always overeating because
Isn't that interesting?
you don't have extra weight if you're not, I mean, for some few things. And I am hypothyroid. So I was sort of a little self-diagnosing. I can't lose weight and, that kind of thing. And the worry I had too, but it was dispelled even before we started, was how so many of your people have already said, I'm going to be your first failure. And when so many people said that, I just said, you know what? I didn't believe it anymore because I felt it was something we were all going to, like we all felt. And so
Yes.
I believed you were going to help me. And that's when we had that first phone call with the mini session. And
Yes.
I said to you, Dr. Deb, I know you're going to help me. And you said, okay, Peg, because so then I will, and there, the journey of my thoughts, the journey of seeing my thoughts, facing my thoughts.
Right. And when you're saying about your thoughts, because thoughts create feelings, I think it's really important for everybody listening that when you came to me, what was going on is that you felt broken. You really felt that there was something wrong with you. And it was like the weight was kind of linked up to thinking that there was something wrong with you. And maybe if I lost the weight, maybe that would be it. But I remember, like on our first mini session, that one of the things that you're saying to me is that you just always felt anxious, that you just always
Anxious.
had
Yeah.
this
Hmm.
stuff going on and that you just didn't understand why.
Why? Anxious and not good enough. And then I
Yes.
think that's why the COVID made me feel a little more not good enough, because it was just watching bad things happening, and we didn't have good protocols, and we all know we don't really have treatments. And so that kind of added to my, I'm not good enough, I don't know what I'm doing, and that just accelerated anxiety, and my weight just stayed. Not that I probably put on about 5 pounds, in 6 months,
It's
but
not so much about the weight gain for you and the weight as much as how you were using food not to be able to feel what was going on and making the weight. I don't care if it's 5 pounds, 10 pounds, or 100 pounds.
right,
It's all the
right.
same problem. And the 5 pounds causes just as much anxiety for you as somebody that would gain 50 pounds. It's all the same burden. Yes?
It was absolutely, absolutely. And so I felt in a rut too. Like I was just, anxious, worried, and needed help.
I
Needed
think
help.
that's a good way to start this out is you were anxious, worried, and needed help, felt broken and felt not good enough. And probably everybody listening to this is going on, that's me too, right?
Yeah.
Right. And here you are, as I know, and as people are probably listening to you, is that you're quite smart. You love what you do as a nurse practitioner and you help people every day. And yet you have this underlying thought all the time is that you're not good enough, you're not doing enough. And I think that's what was creating so much of the negative emotion for you, on top of the circumstances of what was going on in life with COVID and all of that, right?
Yeah.
So, talk to me about how you decided to invest in yourself for this. So, you knew you wanted to work with me. You thought I could help you, which is a really good place to go, is that you believe that I could help you.
Right,
But
right.
when it really came down to investing in yourself, talk to me a little bit about that, because you talked a little bit about that there might have been a little self sabotage in that.
There was. And the first thing I do want to say though is your
Yeah.
mini sessions were, that mini session was so great. And so you had me at, it's just a thought, Peg. Like that's all we kept saying. And the minute you said during that mini session, because I said to you, this is so vulnerable, Dr. Deb. You're gonna be in my head, and you're gonna see me, and that
Uh huh.
super scared me, which is what I kind of do. I scare myself. We know that we learned that a lot, right? I scare
Well,
myself.
you and most human beings, we have
Right.
brains that scare us to try to protect us.
Right. And one of the most wonderful things that
Yeah.
you said, of which were 1,000, but the most wonderful was, Peg,
Yes.
what if you had somebody holding your hand and helping you see these thoughts that were scary, and you wouldn't be alone? And so that was powerful for me. It's just a thought,
Oh,
and that I wouldn't be alone, because really we're all alone, aren't we, in our heads all day long, with
yeah.
what we're torturing ourselves for. And what I was afraid about
Hmm.
that you would see, you kind of automatically turned it around and said, no, that's going to be helpful. And so again, why is a coach helpful? Like I couldn't see and I didn't know. So I was kind of pretty sold. And then we talked about the money. And then, I was driving home. And so I'm like, well, my husband, he's not a big fan about spending money. And so, so my self sabotage, which we didn't realize until later when we talked about it,
Hmm.
was that I went in armed for a fight, and I got one with my husband. And it really wasn't fair, because I had, without getting into any of the details, he was like, well, this is a lot of money. But if I had said to him, babe, I need to do this, he would have said, "Oh my God, Peg, do it, do it, do it." I know but I went in armed, to maybe sabotage myself, maybe have him be so mad that then I wouldn't do it, and I would just be, so after we had our,
Yes.
right? I don't know if
Right.
I'm
So
making,
you went in there's kind of like, because a lot of people will say to me, well, I have to talk to my husband.
yes.
And most of the time when they say that, they don't do the program.
Ah,
It's interesting. And so for you, you wanted to talk to your husband, but in your head, there was maybe a little bit of fear about working with me at some level when you're talking about
Absolutely.
self-sabotage. So
Right.
that you went in there kind of, instead of going, babe, I really need this, you kind of went in there ready to fight so that maybe he would say it's too expensive and you shouldn't do it, so you wouldn't
Correct.
have to do it.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. So after our little discussion, as we've referred to it now, um, I went to my computer and, was filling it out. And so I took a deep breath and I said, this is a lot of money. And then I had an amazing thought in my head. And I said, Peg, is this money worth it if you get rid of the anxiety, you lose a little weight, and you have a little peace? And I almost didn't have a think. My finger just went right to the send. It was just like an automatic thing. And that was the other thing that you taught me so much, was about my intuition, that I do have good intuition. And that was one of the best intuitions I've had of many things in my life, was hitting that send button and joining our journey together. So
Yes. And so like when we talk about intuition, it's like you had this little fear, like you said at the
mhm,
beginning, of maybe you'd heard other people say, maybe I'll be her first failure. So
right,
you knew people were thinking that. So you said, I'm going to do it anyway. But in the back of your mind, maybe there was a little bit of maybe it might not work. And that's where the self-sabotage comes in.
right,
But
right.
then when you got right down to it, the thought that came into your head is, what if you got what you wanted?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And
Mhm,
the feeling that you had, which is what we call intuition, which
mhm.
is you saying to you got to do this for yourself, and you push the button.
Correct. That was
And
it.
for everybody that's listening, to know that there's that feeling that says yes, and then your mind that comes in and tells you all the things that are going to go wrong.
Correct.
Right. So that's the beginning of starting to trust yourself.
Right, right, right. Which I really don't think I did,
Yes.
which is kind of funny because of what I do every day, and not trusting myself. And again, I didn't know. I didn't know that I wasn't trusting. I didn't know so much of what was going on in my head.
Right. You just knew that you were feeling a lot of it. You could feel these emotions, and you also thought there was something wrong with you because you had so much anxiety and you had a lot
Correct.
of issues. You had a lot of thoughts about your anxiety.
Yes, exactly. Which was
Right. And that's
yeah,
part of the stuff about feeling broken, is that you shouldn't feel this and it shouldn't be like this.
exactly.
Okay.
Mhm.
So let's fast forward a little bit, because you, of course, have come up with some amazing, you sent me, and this is what we're talking about right now, is you sent me the top 10 reasons of why, someone should do this work, why the podcast is so good. So I'm just going to let you talk and tell me, because you have such amazing ideas on here. But one of the things that really saying to me that I'd love for you to speak to is talk a little bit about our first session.
Oh my.
Because I love what you said about it, and I just would love for you to share it.
It was what a great day. What a great day. I was in a frenzy, to say the least. My
I remember.
anxiety was like through the roof. And it was all my thoughts that were driving it. I wasn't good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. And so, what you said to me, and I always listened to you. We always talked in my car. That's where you and I did this, was in my car, because I'd have
In
to
your
go to work.
office. In your
In my
office.
office. Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. So I'd run out of the building and go into my car. And
Yeah.
so, you said, Peg, well, let's stop here. Let's, take a deep breath. And then you helped me feel my emotions. And it was it was a life-changing experience. And like I said in the beginning about how you were there, and Dr. Deb and I just met each other right today. Today's our first day we met,
Saw each
but
other.
we saw each other, and it was scary. It was so scary. And
Mhm.
yet you talked me through it, and I felt everything. And then as I was feeling it, it left. And it felt like you held my hand almost there, even though you weren't there. It was like I wasn't alone. I worked myself through the whole event. And then even 5 minutes later, we even were laughing a little bit. And he even said to me, Peg, look, we're laughing. And that's where I learned so much. Is one, I wasn't feeling my emotions. And
And the reason that you weren't feeling your emotions, if we could look at it now as we start on that first session, is
mhm,
because I think you were just afraid to.
exactly. And I
You
didn't know.
wanted to stay away from them.
Yeah. But I thought, Dr. Deb, I was feeling it. That was
Yes.
because I said, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling, but I didn't let it go through me. I held on to it. It was held. And so in that first session, remember what I said before I started, if I could get rid of my anxiety, that was the day I started letting go of the anxiety. I learned how to feel it. I learned how to go through me. I mean, if we stopped then, and thankfully we didn't, but if we stopped then, I would have said, I got my money's worth. This was it. This was what I was looking for. And so
Mhm.
it was amazing. And that's when we looked at my thoughts about not being good enough and not, are you good enough, Peg? And I said, oh, yeah, I'm good enough, but I wasn't perfect. And there I learned I wasn't, and that was the thought in my head. They're perfect, Peg. You got to do something about
Uh-huh.
this. You're not,
Uh-huh.
no, you gotta, and perfect was I looking for, but good enough. And do you love what you do, Peg? Oh my God, I love what I do. And I had totally forgot and lost it because of all these anxious, negative thoughts that I had going on.
Because of all the judgments that you had on yourself, you forgot.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And I call her the mean girl. I have mean girl. Mean girl is around. And I see her. The thing that I learned after all of our coaching together was I see her so clearly. The minute she walks in the room, I see her and I acknowledge her and I say, we're not doing that. We don't do that anymore. It's okay. We're going to be okay.
I love that. And so, when we can talk about like it seems like it's another person, but really it's just another thought,
It's just
right?
another thought. Yep.
Right. And there's very strong judgmental thoughts. And then there's more compassionate, loving thoughts.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think all you're saying is that you have learned and practiced saying more loving, compassionate thoughts to you that you actually believe that change how you feel, that
Correct.
change what you do and how you treat yourself.
Correct. Yes, correct. And but finding the right words. And like you said, to believe it, because
Yes.
that's another amazing thing that we did together was that you kept saying, well, will you believe that statement? Can you believe that? And I'd be like, okay, yeah, this is something I can work with. Or
And
can
how did
you?
you know? How did you know? So tell everybody, because this is the most important. So it's almost like when I would say to you, can you believe it? Like if you would say to me, I need to be perfect or I'm not doing it good. And then I would give you something like, well, what if you're doing it good enough?
Right,
Right?
right.
What would happen? Like, how did you know that you could use that thought instead and believe it just as much as you were believing the other, the more negative?
Because I feel it in my body. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. So when I thought it was BS, I couldn't go with it. But I can immediately, and like I'll never forget when you said, "Are you good enough?" And I just said, "Oh, I'm good enough. Yes, I'm definitely good enough." And that was life changing. I held on to the idea of not good enough, not even not good enough, but not perfect for I don't know what 40 years.
That's right. Thinking that
You
you're
know?
not good enough when
Right.
we change the way we looked at it from perfection, which is really where you were, to is it okay if you're not perfect?
Right,
Is it
right, right.
okay if you're just good enough? Can you just go with that?
Mhm. Exactly. And I totally could. My whole body relaxed. I was, I'll tell you, when I got out of that car after our first section, I think I was flying. I felt so uplifted and relieved. And I knew that this was going to be my new way of being, my new way of being. And that was, and it has been, because that was in, I don't know, July, August, whatever, whenever
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah. So, talk about your journey a little bit. We went from the first session, it changed everything for you in many ways, but we went through a lot of different scenarios. I even remember, and you might want to talk a little bit about even the beginning of doing food journals,
Hmm.
that I remember that it was just really hard for you to even know what your physical hunger was, that you were just kind
Very
of putting the same numbers all the time.
correct. Well, that's why another brilliant thing you said to me was, I think because are you being self compassionate? Absolutely, yeah. I'm being absolutely being self compassionate.
Yeah.
And you said, I don't think overeating is a sign of self compassion, and that just landed so much on me. It was so like, wow, like I could see myself overeating. Like all of a sudden, I'd be overeating, and I just wasn't. I was so disconnected. But on our first day, we also established my goal, right? What
Your
my thought
compelling
was,
reason, your compelling
a
reason.
compelling reason, right? Which is, I'm going to think about myself first, which was such an amazing thing for Peg to say, that I'm going to think about myself first, was an amazing
And
part of
that
my.
and the way that we said it is that I'm going to learn.
Yes, I'm going to learn, because I couldn't, the idea of putting myself first was tough. But finding that right compelling reason is so important. I saw later, and because all day long I'd be like, oh, I've got to do this, and I'd be like, I feel hungry. Oh, I'll wait. Oh, no, wait a minute. I got my compelling reason. I'm going to go. I'm going to stop right now. No one's bleeding. I can go and eat. So that helped me start to connect with how my body was feeling. But it took a while for me to 2+ -2 and all, very, very hard. But when you said that to me about the self-compassion, that was sort of a driving force that I've been kind of pretending. Like my brain was telling me, oh, you're 2+, Peg, or, oh no, you're +1, Peg, you can keep eating. It was my brain. And all of a sudden I said, wait a minute, that's not my body.
That's
That's my
right.
brain. And so when I shut the brain off, and then I really started to get a good sense of it. But it wasn't, I don't want to say it was hard. It wasn't hard. It just didn't come easy.
It's just
And
not what you've been doing for a long time, right? You were really, I
yeah,
think that you were afraid of getting satisfied. I mean, I think that you had a lot of, and I think a
yeah,
lot of people who are listening to this have a lot of fear around food and
yes,
eating too much, not eating, going to go hungry. And I
yeah,
think you had to deal with all that. When you talk about your mind telling you, the mind can talk without connecting to the body, or the mind can talk being connected to the body. And I
right,
think what you're referring to is your mind was kind of telling you what it thought you should be feeling without you
yes,
checking into your body to know what you were feeling.
right. And the minute I could hear the thoughts, then I knew I had to start paying attention. Like, it's 12 o'clock, it's lunchtime. That was the thought. I'm not hungry yet. Or wait a minute, it's 11 o'clock and I'm hungry.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I, need to do that. But once I could see that my thoughts were there, I could, like we found for while we were working together, every time I saw the thought, I could really, I don't know if dissipate is the right word, or acknowledge it, or it kind of disappeared almost.
Right.
Now it wasn't like, oh, you're hungry, or it's 6 o'clock or whatever. It's like, you know what? I feel hungry right now. I can sense that. And sometimes, like, I'll say, like, I'll eat 3+. And I kind of knew I was doing it, and then I acknowledged that was a little more just thought, and I overate a little bit. And then it's okay. It was okay. And then we went on to the next meal.
And so tell me where you're at now compared to where you were before when you started. You felt you were broken. You felt like you were never good enough. You had a lot of anxiety. You were afraid of it. You didn't know when you're hungry. You didn't know when you're full. Kind of talk about where you are now and how you manage your mind.
So I pay attention to my mind. So how's that? And right now I feel very powerful. I am good enough. I'm so excited because you helped me actually change a lot of my life. I've reduced my work schedule because I realized I didn't want to be working as much as I was. So it's Friday, and it's a day off today, which I'm really excited about. So my life is very different than it was. I'm not afraid. And I'm also not afraid to feel what I feel. And that's amazing. Like, if I had some sadness over, these last few months, and,
Yeah.
I remember walking on the beach, and I would think about you a lot because I'd be out in the rain. It was pouring rain, the wind. It was an amazing day. And I sobbed my heart out. I walked on that beach. I cried and cried and cried. And in a great way, not in a bad way. It was just cathartic. It was, it's okay, Peg. You're sad. It's okay to be sad. And how great to acknowledge yourself, to be kind to me, and not to berate myself for having human emotions, right? So I can feel my emotions. I eat between the twos regularly. I've lost weight. I'd like to lose a little more weight. And I feel like I can do that. So I feel amazing, right? Is that our word? Is amazing. So.
Yeah, that's just, and we did come to that, right? Like we would talk about that word because I love that word. And you ended up adopting it, so to speak.
Yes.
It's talking, that's a feeling that comes from a thought that you actually now believe about yourself.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
Amazing.
And so it's like if we were thinking about what we wanted to share with other people that were listening to this, because you used to be on the other side of this where you were listening to me interview other people.
Right.
You felt broken when you first came, when you first started,
Right.
and now you feel amazing.
Amazing.
What would you say to the people who are listening to you right now, who are probably where you were?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to them about their next steps? Like they're probably thinking maybe that they're going to fail, so why start? It's too expensive. It's never going to be able to do it. What would you say to that?
You know, I had a pediatrician who said to me when I was helping with some mothering, and he said, you know, Peg, you got to ignore the uproar. Ignore the uproar and just, kind, caring, and move forward, right? So that's what I would say to people is to really ignore the uproar in your head, all the negative, it's not going to work, I'm not good enough, I'm blah, 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 all of that negative, and go to your heart and listen to your heart. And that's what I did. I listened to my heart, and I knew that what you were talking about spoke to me in such a profound way. So listen to your heart. And if what Dr. Deb is saying and sounding sings to you and is profound, then you have to do this for yourself. This is going to help you. I don't know how to strongly recommend it except to say, listen to your heart and go and hit the submit button.
I love it. I love it. I think this is a great place for us to end, unless there's anything else that you could possibly add.
I guess the only last thing is self-compassion sounds so easy.
Yeah.
And my brain is so good that it didn't even make me see that it wasn't self-compassion. I couldn't even see it, I was being mean to myself. And so a lot of even just how I react with anxiety is kind of a mean way to handle things. And that's why I needed a coach. And it's okay if you need a coach. Getting help is an amazing thing. And this will always be one of the most amazing things I've done in my life, Dr. Deb, was to say yes to me and to say yes to you. So,
Peg, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I have loved every minute of working with you. And I guess this is why I do what I do. So thank you so much.
And thank you, Dr. Deb. Amazing.
Okay. Thank you. Well, that was my interview with Peg. And I told you that she's pretty funny, but she's also very poignant about getting her points across. I hope I said that word right. Poignant? I'm not sure. You know what I mean. But with Peg, one of the things that I think I would just like to point out about her is that she actually thinks that she's amazing. And she thinks I'm amazing too. And when we first started talking and we did a mini session together, Peg did not think she was amazing. Peg was anxious all the time. I know she said that in an interview, but she was. She was anxious and she was scared all the time. And now, not so much. And now she thinks that she's amazing. So whenever she sends me an email or whenever we talk, she also says, "Hi, this is amazing, Peg." And she always signs off like with talking about how amazing I am too, because I kind of think I'm amazing on most days or many days. And now she does too. And you know what? Who else is going to think you're amazing if you don't? So for her, I am so thrilled that she actually believes that about herself, and she's creating a life for herself. When she thinks of herself as amazing, she's creating an amazing life. And if that's what you're looking for, an amazing life, and you want to believe that it's possible that you could think you're amazing too, with the weight on, with the weight off, I know you want to lose weight, but the amazingness isn't going to come from a skinny body. The amazingness comes from your own mind. If you're looking to feel amazing about yourself, then maybe it's time you and I talked. You can set up a mini session and we can spend 30 minutes together to find out if my coaching would be a good fit for what you're wanting and what you're looking for. And if I don't think you are, I'll be happy to tell you that. And if I am, I'll be happy to tell you that too. All you have to do is go to drdebbutler.com/work with me, and you can set up a mini session. And if you want to go back and read the notes on all the information that Peg gave, you can go to my website, drdebbutler.com/258, and you can get all the notes and all the information that we talked about. So as always, when I end this podcast, you know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it just in case you forgot. No matter what else you do and no matter where else you go today, please, please, please be very, very kind to yourself, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye. If you've been following my podcast and you're loving all the tools that I teach you, but you're just not sure that you can do it or apply it by yourself, then please go to drdebbutler.com/work with me. And you can find out if the program that I do and the coaching that I do will help you get to where you want to be, to learn all the tools that I teach and be able to make it a part of your life. Just go to drdebbutler.com/work with me. You can set up a free 30-minute mini session.